All right, we are live, and we're here with Maggie Moda. Moda, correct?
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much
Yes,
for having me.
fantastic. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. This is such an honor. Um, but can you just introduce our before we get to our conversation? So, guys, we're going to be talking about Charlie and what happened, everything, all the consequences of his assassination, and all the conversations people are having regarding free speech and Israel, all of that. But before we do that, Maggie, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do, so
Yeah,
that they get to know
absolutely.
you?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. My name is Maggie. I'm an online commentator. I work for the Foundation for Economic Education, and I run a sub brand of that called Undoctrination. And on that channel, we actually talk a lot about, world politics, different movements that are happening in different countries. But we also discuss the cost of living issues that Americans and people around the world are facing as well. Um, and outside of that, I do a lot of other political commentary, which we're doing today. So I'm excited to talk to you about Charlie. I recently published an article on the Freeman about how post his assassination, I realized how much Charlie had impacted my life in ways that I hadn't realized before. And I think a lot of us in America and around the world realized that he had a much larger impact than we knew before 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, by the way, guys, I will put Maggie's YouTube channel in the live chat, but it's also linked in the description. So, guys, please make sure you go and subscribe there. You're basically a champion of classical liberal values. Is that
That's
correct to
right.
say?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's
So,
a fair assumption.
free speech, free markets, a libertarian,
Absolutely.
basically, right? Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
Same
for
as
the
me.
most part, yeah, I've kind of eschewed labels because I think the values that we're espousing are so much more important, and a lot of these labels have become toxic based on who
Yes.
is the most famous person at the time to be claiming those
Right.
labels. But I would say the most famous libertarian right now is Javier Milei, and I would say I'm fairly close to him on the political spectrum. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, but you're right with regards to the labels because um it's really hard to defend some other people who are using these labels sometimes. So sometimes you just want to like, let me just explain to you what I believe, right? Right.
Right. And American
Yeah.
libertarian politics is filled with, all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, definitely in the 2010s. I don't know if you heard about the Libertarian National Convention, I believe in 2016, where the
Well,
guy ran across stage, in his birthday suit.
I haven't seen that. What I've seen is some more recent crazy stuff where the
Mhm.
libertarians are supporting Hezbollah, and
Mhm.
those are what is that? I haven't seen what was that event that you mentioned? Like, what is it? Can you explain what happened?
The Libertarian National Convention. It's the largest gathering, I would say, of political libertarians, so people supporting the Libertarian Party.
Right.
But in America, there's a big distinction between, big L libertarians who support the party and small L libertarians who are just advocating for these ideas, of which I would
Right.
consider myself one. Yeah.
Yes. And the crazies on this side, they are becoming a lot more anti-Israeli with their reasoning being that they need to uh, spend less money on foreign policy, on the military, and that's why a lot of them are becoming more and more anti-Israeli. Some of these libertarians, with the argument that Israel is dragging the United States into so many wars. And they're not libertarians, they're isolationists. I mean, my perspective of the, let me know if you agree with this. I think a strong country has a government that a smaller government. The reason why we want a smaller government is that we could save enough money to have a big army to protect the country. And when we're trying to save, when if a government that is less involved is a government that is richer, so that it actually be involved in places that it does need to be involved. We want government to be less involved in areas that it's not good at, so that it could be more involved in areas where the government is meant to be, which enforcing the law and also protecting the people. And United States involvement around the world has made United States a much safer country. So I support that, and I don't think that contradicts libertarian values. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think that's very consistent for the international libertarian perspective. For at least American libertarians, most have been born out of the Ron Paul movement. And that was a huge anti-war movement, basically, because we got involved in a lot of wars and didn't see great returns on that, and experienced a lot of loss with our involvement in the Middle East. And so this created a big anti-war movement in the United States. So I would say the average American libertarian is actually very, very anti-war and wants to spend less money on foreign policy. However, at least for me, I think that to a degree, we do need a very strong military, a very strong defense system, and that is a role of government that I support. But I would definitely say the government's involvement in the economy we have a very outsized involvement in the economy, and that's creating a lot of problems for young people on the ground in America right now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to see how that leads to your views on Israel and, the support the United States has for Israel. But before I do that, let me thank Unusual AI for the 120 euro super chat. Thank you so much, Unusual AI. That's very generous. So how do you think that, what do you think? A lot of libertarians these days are criticizing their government being supporting Israel, and some of them have gone so crazy that they're actually supporting Israel's enemies. But do you, as somebody who believes in classical liberal values, do you think that United States needs to support Israel more, less, or it's just about right?
I think the standard, consistent libertarian take, if you're an American, is that we should not be funding foreign wars, period. And we know that the American government has funded both sides of this war, which I think has escalated the conflict more and more and more and more over the years. But I would not say I'm the best person to talk about the Israel conflict, just because I am definitely not the most educated on it, right? And I typically defer to other people. However, I'll say this, like, as someone who is a Catholic and believes in life, I think war is terrible. The loss of human life is really, really terrible. I also understand the need for people to have some way to defend themselves and to represent themselves and be able to self-govern with a state. I get that. So, I think both of those are views that I hold, and I would say I have a fairly nuanced, if slightly, I have a slightly nuanced take on it, but not one that I would say anyone should defer to me for my expertise, because I would not consider myself an expert on the issue.
I really appreciate you saying that, because people talk with so much confidence these days about, and when you say you're not as educated on it, a lot of people might think that's a weakness, but that I really admire when somebody says that. Your skepticism, and when you say something but lack of confidence because you're not sure if your information about something is correct or not. I wish more people did that. That's really I wish we could hear more of that. I'll let you know what I think about this, and then I want to also talk about Charlie and how what he seemed to think about. I mean, I think this was Charlie's position as well. And people were trying to make it seem like his views were changing at the end. But my view is that United States has saved a lot of lives and a lot of money supporting Israel. And also, yeah, war is bad, but sometimes to stop, in the same way that in school, if sometimes you need to bully the bully to reduce bullying, sometimes you need to reduce war, you need war. We cannot wish war go away. Israel has shown throughout its history that every time it has managed to accomplish long-lasting peace, it has been able to do that not through negotiations, not through ceasefires, but only through crushing its enemies in war. By its victory in war that brings long-lasting peace, not negotiating with terrorists. That's what has been demonstrated throughout Israel's history. And also, when it comes to the United States, United States has become a great country because it has strong allies and because it supports its allies. And United States military's involvement around the world has brought so much stability and peace, so much security for international trade all around the world, that I don't think a lot of Americans understand that this level of trade, this level of trade security in the world would not be possible without United States military's involvement all around the world. There's no other army on the planet that could provide that security for international trade. And United States does that partly through having strong allies and strong ties with its allies and supporting its allies when they need help, or else the entire global economy will collapse if United States was not doing this. So people are like, oh, we're spending too much money. Well, you would be spending so much more if it wasn't because of the network of, relationships and support that United States had with its allies. And having an ally means that you're there for them when they need you. That's how it works. I don't know. I went for too long. This should be you talking. I don't know why I'm talking so much, but yeah.
No, I really appreciate hearing your perspective. And I think at least publicly, it's one that Charlie shared. I think, to move this discussion more towards Charlie Kirk and the speculation around what he believed regarding this issue, I think it's a lot of speculation, right? It seems like friends on both sides are now releasing private text messages saying, oh, he actually was changing his mind, or no, he was consistent. This is how he's always felt. And I think,
Right.
maybe that's fair to do. But I think for me, I didn't know Charlie, right? I didn't know him personally. I didn't know his beliefs. It seemed like he wanted to open dialogue around the issue because it has become such a controversial issue in America, especially among young people, especially among young Republicans. There's a huge diversity of thought around this conflict. And fair enough, because there is a lot of American money going towards this conflict on both sides. So I think it's great that Charlie was opening up dialogue around it, but I have no idea if he was changing his mind. And I also don't think it necessarily matters, because at this moment in America, there is a much larger conversation about what is happening internally, right? Charlie Kirk touched a lot of lives. I think I'm not alone in feeling that he had an outsized impact on my life, more than I even knew when he was alive. And we can kind of dive into that, like how integral his role was in the campus speech wars and everything, which I was participating in the late 2010s. But someone tried to end the conversation by assassinating him. And we know what that person believed. And we know how people who feel the same way that person felt reacted to Charlie. And so I feel like this has taken a lot of attention away from what is a really disturbing trend in America, which is that several people on the political left believe that violence is justified in political discourse. And we knew this to be the case back when Trump got shot, right? And he survived that assassination attempt. And people, I've seen this on social media, people keep referring to, waiting for the event, the good news. It's like this code word they use for, celebrating the inevitable, what they think is the inevitable, which is Trump being assassinated. And I think it's horrible. That's created a horrible culture on the left. This wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing. Like, isn't this all what we want? And then also the Luigi Mangione killing. I remember myself and other people sounding the alarms when Luigi Mangione shot the United Healthcare CEO. because people were celebrating that murder as well. And a large part of the response to us when we were saying this is a huge red flag for where politics is going in the United States, the response to us was, but don't you think people have a right to be concerned about healthcare? The answer is yes, but that has nothing to do with political violence. It should never open up the conversation, right? Political violence needs to be rooted out of American politics. And unfortunately, it seems like it's only growing. And so this Charlie Kirk assassination, the assassination of someone who wasn't a politician, who was just, like you and I, someone who spoke his mind, who debated issues, who was a promoter of freedom of speech, to take him out is a very, very troubling sign. And I think that's really what this conversation needs to be focused on in America right now. And some people are trying to distract and pull away from it. A lot of people are making assumptions that Charlie Kirk himself cannot respond to about what he was thinking and feeling. And so my hope is to keep the conversation focused where I think it really needs to be had.
Right. So I'm going to tell you what people would say in response to that when it comes to political violence. But before I do that, let me just respond to them. Let's close the Israel part and just respond to what you said. And then we'll close that chapter and we'll go to this political violence chapter. With regards to Charlie changing his opinion, my understanding, again, I can't be sure, based on everything I see, that, and again, people who are suggesting that he was changing his mind, many of them are saying that because they're trying to accuse Jews and Israel for killing him, right? But I'm not saying that means that they're wrong. But we have to acknowledge the reason why they're highlighting that. It's always the Jews. The Jews are behind basically everything that it goes wrong in the world. The Jews are behind it. So if Charlie is dead, now they want to act like Israel was responsible for that as well. But when I examined what Charlie was saying, Charlie was experiencing something that I have experienced on a much smaller scale here with our audience as well, which is that I consider myself a Zionist. I'm not a Jew, but I consider myself a Zionist. And I defend Israel 100%. I dedicated a lot of shows in defending Israel. However, my defense of Israel does not mean that I defend every single policy by the Israeli government. I'm not black and white. There are things that sometimes I see that maybe wrong, correctly or wrongly, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, come and criticize. Like there's something, I support Israel, I support Zionism, but sometimes the IDF does something that I make a show and like, guys, that was wrong. I don't think they should have done that. Or maybe I have some criticism for Netanyahu regarding what he did before October 7th. And every time I made a show about that, there were some people who were following me because I support Israel. They all of a sudden call me anti-Semite. They call me a traitor. They call me a secret Muslim. And that happens every time I do this. But that doesn't make me go against Israel because I just know that's natural. Every group has that. Every group, if you support them for a while, but you criticize them, they think you betrayed them. Not all of them, but there's a small minority in every group that always will react like that. So all that Charlie was doing was noted because Charlie supported Israel, but he didn't support everything the government of Israel does. And
which is normal, by the way.
Normal.
Yeah, we know that governments all the time act in ways that we don't agree with, that we find unethical, so it's completely normal. What you're describing is attempted audience capture. Right? Audiences will try to get you to move more and more in one way on an issue, which is normal, but it is up to the creator who is honest and has integrity to speak their mind and remain true to themselves. And I think Charlie did remain true to himself.
Yes. And Charlie was not turning against Israel. He was just noticing how ridiculous it is that when he criticizes or questions anything, they will call him an anti-Semite, and he was frustrated with that, but he was not turning against Israel. So that was ridiculous. So going back to now your point regarding political violence, people will ask you at this point, you say, why are you making it seem that this is a leftist issue? Data shows that political violence comes mostly from the right. So how would you respond to that if they say
I believe, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think there was a recent study that showed it is moving left. However, if we just look at the major assassination cases of the last year and a half, it's obvious, you know, that it is from one side attacking another, and that, you know, who in the political spectrum is celebrating this? I don't see Republicans or conservatives celebrating this. And this is not to say that everyone on the left loves political violence. Obviously not. But this has become an increasing issue because of radicalization. And I'm not saying that the political right could never start committing political violence like this as well. But sometimes these things move in waves. Like, I believe it was the 60s when we saw a huge wave of left-wing political violence. It's important to track this because it's important to track trends within movements. And I do believe there is a small part of the internet that convinces people to go out there and commit acts of violence in support of their ideas. And we have to figure out where that is. We have to figure out where these radicalization chambers are located so that we can stop it.
Yeah. So I mean, we have been anti woke left and the woke right on this channel. So I'm not. I wouldn't. We have had a lot of problems with some crazy elements on the right on this channel many times. So we're not going to shy away. Like, people think like, oh, you're going to deny that it's the right-leaning people also commit violence. Like, no, we don't.
They
Like,
absolutely
we go
do.
after them.
Yeah,
they absolutely. And yeah, and honestly, the way I look at, maybe I don't know if this is correct or not, but it seems like if we're counting total numbers of political violence, just in total number, not measuring the significance, just the total number, it is true that the right-leaning, there's more right-leaning political violence, but the celebration of political violence seems to be more on the left. So it's just the wider, not the individuals who are committing the violence, but just the larger population just seems to be like, even if we have more political violence on the right, most people on the right will not celebrate that. But the number of people on the left who celebrate the political violence seems to be much, much bigger than compared to the right. Does that make it? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
potentially. I mean, when we're talking about data, it's important to know what's being measured over what period of time. And I don't have any official data in front of me, but 3 assassinations or assassination attempts come to mind of the past year and a half. And I think there is a trend here because the reaction to the violence, I think, creates an environment where more violence can occur. Am I saying those people are responsible for the political violence occurring? No, I'm just saying this environment breeds people that think that it's acceptable. And frankly, the reaction to Charlie Kirk's death, I mean, I know people that celebrated. I know them personally from you know, my life, and I'm not very old. I don't know that many people, right? But I know people who celebrated it. And it was so disturbing because it's not like they're totally off the deep end, right?
Yeah.
So it's something I've been struggling with a lot as a commentator, as someone who works in this field. Not that I am anywhere near the level of Charlie Kirk, right? I hope one day to have even a fraction of his impact, because he really did have so much impact on young Americans. But it's scary for me because if they would celebrate him being murdered, how would they feel about me? If they had no relationship to me, if I was just some random abstracted version of myself, I had the same personality, I had all the same opinions, and I didn't have that relationship with them, how would they feel? And since thinking about it like that, it's been very difficult not to personalize this issue. And I think a lot of people are feeling the exact same way that I feel right now. And it is causing a really big reaction on the right. Now, what is an acceptable reaction to this? I think there can be a discussion there.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually made a peace with the fact that if I died today, the number of people celebrating that is more than the number of people who would be sad about that. I am like, that's something that I have to accept with the life decisions that I've made. But it is what it is. I mean, honestly, if you don't have anybody hating you, then what are you doing? Right? Like you, but
Fair enough. But it's a
yeah,
line, right? It's a
yeah,
line that I think should not be crossed. I think it's unacceptable in civil discourse, you know. I
right,
don't think it's an acceptable opinion to hold. And part of this whole marketplace of ideas is that in the discourse, we do decide through participation and through discussing with each other and through talking, we do label some beliefs as like unacceptable positions to hold, right? And I think wishing for the death of your political enemy is an
right,
unacceptable position to hold.
right. Okay, we got a super chat that I think is very nice because it's addressing you. Drew is saying to me, "I'm so glad you have a nice Catholic on who isn't spewing lies like Candace Owens about Charlie converting and changing on Israel." Oh yeah, by the way, Candace was actually suggesting that he was about to become Catholic as well. I don't know if you saw it.
You know, I saw that speculation all over the place. Just having been around TPUSA events, I highly doubt that Charlie Kirk was ever going to convert Catholic. He was wearing, I believe, a St. Michael's necklace. But I think
Mhm.
I think it's more normal in American culture for there to be more interaction between Protestants and
Mm.
Catholics. Although, um, you know, there is some tension there, especially when you go to European countries.
Yeah. What do you think we can do about it? Like it's if we come here and say, "Oh, guys, political violence bad, it's bad. Okay, we shouldn't want. That's not a good position to have." Does that do anything? Like, I mean, if people, the amount of celebration I saw,
Mhm.
like, I don't think these are the type of people that we could make podcasts and shows and come around and just call it out as evil. I mean, what does that do? Like, is there no, that doesn't do much to these people are sometimes I feel like they seem too far gone. Is there anything we
Yeah,
could do about this? Like, what is the solution here?
right. I mean, it is worthwhile for us to say that political violence is
Right.
unacceptable. It's worth us saying it over and over again. However, I think you're right to a degree that someone who is off the deep end of celebrating the death of someone that they disagreed with just because they had different political opinions, they are going to be less likely to ever like want to hear us out on that, because
Right.
they've already isolated themselves. They've already declared that this opinion, and the people that hold this opinion are inhuman, right? Like they don't
Mm.
have the same rights as I do because that's essentially what it's saying. However, I think that, and I have not called anyone's workplace and I have not been part of the cancellation mobs. I think in some instances it is fair for a community to react and say, no, we don't want to do business with you, right? It is fair
Mm.
for there to be some real world repercussions as a result. And I think this is where I diverge a little bit with a lot of libertarians, even though, I think it is ideologically consistent for me to hold this opinion. I don't think it's acceptable for the government to step in and deliver real world consequences for holding beliefs we find distasteful and offensive. I think it is fair for society to deliver consequences, especially communities. And we've seen that happening. But I do think a lot of other free speech absolutists would say that we need to create a culture of free speech. We shouldn't be doing cancel culture. We shouldn't be hypocritical. Um, I I don't I wouldn't say this is necessarily hypocritical.
Yeah, I would agree with you. By the way, Kenny, thank you so much for the super sticker. I would agree with you because freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. And freedom of speech also is the freedom to not work with somebody who you do not like. Like these are private companies.
Yes.
They have the freedom to not want to hire somebody who has horrible views. It's also freedom of speech means the freedom for you to go and inform a company that their employee has these views. That's freedom of speech. Freedom also means that I am free not to boycott a company if I don't like the fact that they continue to hire a certain
Yes.
person. So this does not violate like people are saying, oh, this is cancel culture, so this violates their free speech. No, it doesn't. They're exercising their free speech. I'm exercising my freedom to push
Yes.
back against what they said. It only violates free speech when the government gets involved. Would you agree with
Right.
that?
Absolutely. And by the way, the people sounding the alarm on this on the left were the same exact people advocating that, you know, kids that said the N word when they were like 13 lose their job 15 years later or can't get into a
Right.
college, right? Like that is such a ridiculous belief to hold while also simultaneously saying that, you know, celebrating the death of someone who had different beliefs than you is not a fireable offense. I'm sorry. These just are not consistent beliefs to hold. But
Right.
also I will say, as someone who thinks that we should offer people the potential for redemption, I do not like the databases online that are keeping track of all these people and the things they said, because those will never go away. That to me is somewhat near the equivalent of taking something someone said 15 years ago on Twitter, or, you know, someone captured them in a video at a party in high school to use as
I,
blackmail. I feel like that is crossing a line for me because I think redemption is part of political discourse, right? We want people to have the ability to
yep.
change their minds.
But if somebody was dancing to Charlie's death, okay, if you put them on a list so that people know that this person's views are this, I think that doesn't go against redemption. That we could notice that, we could list that, but we also could forgive them if they come out and say like, we could put them on the list conditionally. And they, this is like fresh. It's not 5 years ago. It's not 7 years ago. I mean, if it's 7 years
Yeah,
from now, the person could be like, oh, that was me 7 years ago. I'm a different person, right? But this just happened. And
it
also I
did.
think we should forgive them if they come out and say, guys, this was a mistake. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this. Then we could be like, okay. Like, but if they haven't, I think nope. I mean, I might disagree
Yeah.
with you a little bit. Keep them on the list if they're this violent. I mean, it's nothing compared to how evil they are. Putting them on lists for people. I mean, they're celebrating murder. They're celebrating terrorism. I think
Mhm.
this should be on a list. I don't know. Maybe I'm too far.
Well,
I
I
know.
mean, so I understand where you're coming from, right? Like you could, years down the line, they make a statement, they get removed from the list, but where's the mechanism for that? After all of this is kind of quieted down, you know, are we really going to be tracking who comes out and makes a public declaration that they were wrong? Are we going to get apology tours from all of these people? I don't think that's how this should actually work, because I think that while these people are publishing their opinions on the internet and trying to participate in a more global conversation or a nationwide conversation, I think a lot of consequences really need to happen on a more localized level. And that's where real change takes place. That's where people actually change their minds. I also just like, I have a slight aversion to creating a list that could be used to target people in the future. Like I just, there's like, I don't think the list would really ever get reviewed, right? It's in the same way the Southern Poverty Law Center can like declare you, you
Yeah.
know, a
Okay. I mean, even
horrible
if you don't
white
put them.
supremacist for no reason, and they'll like never take it off the
Hmm.
website, right? So I do find the list to be a little out of my comfort zone. However, I do think real world consequences are fair. It's not something I would do. I would not call someone's employer. I do think something I'm trying to work up to is having more courage to talk to the people in my life or that were in my life that have said something and try to have a human conversation with them. It's something that's been very difficult for me as of late, because I've just felt very sensitive about the whole subject, and for fair reasons. But I do think at a certain point, it's up to us to try to maintain human relationships and try to pull people back from the dark side, because they're broadcasting these views to everyone they know, right? So maybe at a certain point, the community needs to step in and try to pull them back into humanity.
But this is I mean, okay. So yeah, I see your point, but at the same time, I mean, the community is is global now. This is the community. It's just global rather than local. But
Yeah.
part of removing these, part the way communities historically respond to these things, the way a norm becomes a norm in a community is by making it a taboo, because by society signaling that this is evil by pointing and shaming people. This is how society, like throughout for the past 12,000 years, or actually 300,000 years of human history, that's how we introduce the norm. Like, it's not just because here's one thing that I don't know if you consider yourself an activist. I think you are, right? Like, you would, right?
Yeah.
Us activists, I mean, we need to understand that conversations and logical reasoning can go so far. Many people have their views not because they got to it based on some logical reasoning, or because their views represent, in their mind, the purpose of their views, the purpose of beliefs for most people is not for it to be a reflection of reality. And we people who constantly want to try to reason people into getting the correct beliefs, we have this misunderstanding that the utility of belief is for it to explain reality. But for the vast majority of people, the utility of belief is an identity card and a membership card.
Yes.
And that's
it's
why no
social
matter how much you read,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Basically, you hold this belief because this shows that I belong to these group of people,
Right.
and this also defines my identity. So no amount of logical reasoning can change that, because you're basically killing that person, because you're telling them that their entire identity is based on something false, right? So the only way to fix false beliefs beyond logical reasonings is to get society to consider certain beliefs, which is basically certain identities, to be identities that are shameful or
Unacceptable.
taboo, and
Absolutely.
unacceptable. Yes, yes. So
yes, I
do
totally
think
agree
that
with you on that. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. We got another super chat by Nail Bunny saying, "Careful with this. Freedom from consequences. Women were sacked for saying there were two sexes because trans rights activists harassed their employees." Okay, but well, you go ahead. You respond to that first.
I totally agree, right? And this is one of the arguments for conservatives not participating in cancel culture. However, is the fact that conservatives have largely ceded the moral high ground, or what is socially acceptable to the left, the reason these kinds of views, the ones that were socially acceptable 20 years ago, everyone held them? Is that the reason they're no longer considered socially acceptable and grounds for firing? So, like, I think at a certain point, conservatives, libertarians, people in the right, people in the middle need to participate in the actual marketplace, right? And so we can't keep ceding the moral high ground, what is socially acceptable, to the left. We can't keep letting an increasingly radicalized left wing decide what the social taboos are, because it's becoming not taboo to celebrate the murder of your political opponent, and it's becoming taboo to say that there are two sexes, right? So participation in this marketplace, I think, is essential.
Yeah, I mean, the marketplace of ideas is not just with reasoning, it's also with making certain things taboo, introducing them as taboo, as shameful, as disgusting. And I don't know if that and Neil Bunny, I appreciate the point. I don't agree with that, because I think just because they're doing it and they did it the wrong way, it's kind of like, let's say if you get fired because your boss was flirting with you and you didn't respond and you got fired, and like, oh, your boss shouldn't have fired you for that, that's insane. And then another person says like, oh, I'm going to fire this person because I don't like her. And you're like, why don't you like her? Okay, because, and you say, because she's a literal Nazi. She has Hitler pictures on her Facebook picture, like she's posting celebrating Hitler on X. I don't like to work with this person. I'm like, okay, you can fire her. Like somebody said, like, hold on, man. We don't want to establish this norm that it's okay to fire people because you don't like them. Because didn't you say that first example was wrong? I'm like, yeah, but that was a bad. Just because both of these people are firing somebody they don't like, that doesn't mean they're comparable, right? So I'm saying firing somebody because they said there are two biological sexes, that's insanity. But firing somebody because they were celebrating a terrorist act against somebody because they didn't believe in their views, that is okay. Just, one consequence is a consequence that shouldn't be normalized, and another consequence is a consequence that I think it's okay to be normalized. Like these are not the same thing. Do you agree that these are not the same
Yes,
thing? Like
they're not the same thing. But that's why we have to
Yeah.
participate in this marketplace, and that's why I think it's not hypocritical. Because if you let
Right.
one side determine the taboos of society and you are not participating in determining those taboos, they will run rampant, right? So
Right.
that's when we get people getting fired for espousing pretty normal run-of-the-mill beliefs.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, to take it back, like I do think the list to me is just like, it's like a consistent thing for me. Like I think we need to offer opportunities for redemption, and I'm willing to hear out that there may be some way to do that. But I am skeptical of like the actual follow through on that. I also think that, on the right currently, there's a big conversation being had on where is the government's role in all of this? What can they censor?
Yeah.
And I would love to dive into that with you as well.
Yes, let's do that right now. So let's listen to this, because we were talking about the left's response to Charlie's assassination. And honestly, let me actually compliment conservatives before we start criticizing them, because I mean, I don't know, Maggie, did you see any riots?
Nope.
In regards
Not
to,
one.
I didn't notice any riot. I didn't notice any riots.
Not
I mean,
a single,
not
not
like
a single building on
not a
fire.
single
Yeah.
riot. Were
Yeah.
they burning any stores?
Nobody,
No, nothing. I
nobody
didn't
was
see that.
looting a
No.
Target. Okay. Yeah.
So now that we complimented the right, so let's actually criticize the right, because this was a reaction by Attorney General Pam Bundy. Let's actually listen to it one more time.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech.
That is scary. That is absolutely. Do you agree that I've never, like, this coming from a right-leaning person? There's hate speech
and a lawyer at that. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, you should know this before you go into law school, that hate speech absolutely is legal and protected under the First Amendment. And, Pam Bondi tried to follow up the next morning after literally every conservative, libertarian, liberal, and leftist on the planet attacked her for these words because they are just like totally incoherent when it comes to the Constitution. She clarified the next morning that she meant words that are threatening violence. That is not hate speech. That is incitement, right? Those are threatening words. And we actually have, all of this Supreme Court precedent for the First Amendment to convict people who are actually threatening and who are actually inciting violence.
Okay, you're being charitable. I don't think she clarified. I think she was changing her position
quote
because of
unquote
the
clarified.
backlash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah,
Yeah. Yes, I don't think
that was,
like how could you not? Yeah,
I have this, yeah, I don't know where this was coming from. I really need to know what the conversations were that happened in that podcast studio, who hit record, who stopped the tape, who said, yes, let's release this to the public. I don't understand how anyone let this fly from the administration, because it is so clearly a violation of our First Amendment rights to say you're to target people for hate speech. What, you can't even legally define that. And also this is stealing right from the left's playbook, right?
right.
They've constantly said we need to criminalize hate speech, whatever that is defined by them. I don't know where Pam Bondi was coming from. I'm glad she walked it back at least. But I know the government also wants to go after these groups that are creating the environment where political violence is happening. I'm very curious as to how they're actually going to do that. Luckily, we have the First Amendment, and we have a Supreme Court that has consistently upheld our First Amendment rights, that has clarified what these rights are over time. We have the Brandenburg test for what is actually an incitement of political violence, which we can dig into. And so if the Trump administration does decide to, pass any laws or go after people unconstitutionally, they will be stopped, right? We have a court that has consistently stopped efforts from people across the political spectrum who were in power, who tried to remove free speech rights. So we do have that protection. I'm not super worried, but I would like the Trump administration to uphold our First Amendment rights, because at least to the outside world, it's important that the right remain consistent on this issue, and fight for the same freedoms that Charlie was fighting for. We can't just, in his honor, decide that we're going to do away with the Constitution, because at that point, what are conservatives conserving?
Right. I mean, to your point, this is what Charlie would say. Charlie did say that in 2004. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Okay. So
Period.
you're saying that it's good. Yeah, that period, exactly. It's amazing that in response to Charlie's assassination, they're going basically against his values. But okay, so I'm glad that the amount of pressure made Pam Bondi take back what she said.
Yeah.
However, what's more concerning is that the president of the United States supports that Pam Bondi's position. Look, listen to this. I don't know. Have you seen this video? Let me play it.
I think I did on the timeline. Yeah.
So let me play it.
Genocide in Gaza. They voted
At first, they're talking about Gaza, but then it goes to Pam Bondi.
on that. They have a new report out saying multiple acts of genocide.
When it comes to a vote, we'll see what happens. That'll come to a vote, but we'll see what happens.
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
She'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country. But we're fixing it. We have right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. And remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead.
Okay, now he changes the topic into
country?
something.
Does he say we have the
Yeah.
hottest country in the world?
Yeah,
Okay,
the sexiest
period.
country. So, what do you think about that?
So, every time I listen to a Trump clip, I'm trying to decipher what he's actually saying, because he does the weave. Are you familiar with this term? I don't like that he's reiterating what Pam Bondi said. I also need to look into this case with ABC. I'm wondering if he's talking about libel and defamation. Which libel and defamation, if the publisher knowingly publishes something that's defamatory, that's untrue, that that harms you and they knew it and they did it deliberately, that is not protected speech, right? But again, this is not hate speech. These are different terms.
Yeah.
And I think borrowing this term from HR professionals, I think this is just really dangerous because it's undefinable and it's not a term we've been using at the Supreme Court. We have other legal precedents that the administration can use to go after speech that's not protected.
Yeah, and defamation is not criminal law, that's civil law. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not a crime, it's just that you're suing for damages. So that's not a First Amendment issue. That's just like, you caused me damages, now you need to pay for it. That's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different category. So
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like Trump doesn't understand the difference between hate speech, like the attempt to categorize some speech as hate speech, and defamation, because he's like, oh, he said that he sued them and he won, and that's a form of hate speech. That is not a form of hate speech.
not a
That's
form of
just
hate
you winning a
speech.
case against defamation. That's like a
Yeah.
completely, and it concerns me that the president of the United States does not know that. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm
as-
speculating. I wonder if he was saying that to kind of soften the blow against. I don't know. I don't know why
Well,
we're
well, I have
repeating
more
this
of him.
one.
This might provide some context.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
Okay.
I haven't seen this one.
Okay. So listen to this.
Charlie said, that there was no such thing as hate speech. He obviously, no one anticipated what happened to Charlie, but you have always been, Charlie.
Trump said he might not be saying that now. So he suggests that in response to his assassination, Charlie,
that he would change.
He would change his view and he would now believe in hate speech. That's such a thing. That's dangerous speech.
Yeah.
That's dangerous talk. Yeah. Does that worry you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a growing appetite to, avenge his death and to seek justice. And I completely understand why there is a growing appetite for that, because it was such a horrible thing that happened. I think a lot of us took it very personally, and it was very upsetting, and basically everyone I know that was right of center felt so emotionally impacted by that. So, first there's the grief and sadness, but then that turns to rage. And like, what do we do with that rage? How can we prevent this from happening again? We know there's a problem with radicalization into political violence that's happening, and it could target us next, right? So I think there is this growing appetite for the administration to just do something, right? But what that something is cannot be unconstitutional. I really worry when I hear talk of like throwing away the Constitution, that this document doesn't serve us anymore. I simply don't think that's true, because the Constitution has protected us from abuses that our government could have committed against us. And we see what's happening in the UK right now. They don't have this protection, and people are getting thrown in prison for criticizing their government, right? And for talking about transgender issues. So we do have free speech protections that are working. I think a lot of people would say, well, the left doesn't seem to care about that, but the Supreme Court does, right? And the Constitution is something that we should want to preserve. I think, you made a great point earlier. I think this was before the show, that people in America often don't really understand what our rights are protecting us from and how bad it could have gotten under the Biden administration, right? How bad it really could have gotten for the right. And so I don't think we should be playing with fire like this. I do have hope that the courts will protect us, right? But I don't like setting the precedent that the right would go in and abuse our First Amendment once they have power, right? I think every time someone gets into power, they suddenly want to do away with free speech. with the only exception being libertarians. And those can't really be counted as an exception because we've never had power. So it's never been tested. But I think a lot of libertarians are very principled, right? So I don't think we would go in and violate these things. But it is troubling. I do have hope that the administration will exclusively go after threats of violence. And we do have a test for this. It was decided in Brandenburg versus Ohio. Wait, let me see if I can pull up the quote super quickly. So in Brandenburg versus Ohio.
Oh, you have it already?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, go on.
So in this case, there was a Ku Klux Klan rally, right? And one of the leaders or a member at this rally says the following quote, okay, tell me if this is a threat of violence or not. We're not a revengeant organization, but if our president, our Congress, our Supreme Court continues to suppress the white Caucasian race, it's possible that there may have to be some revengeance taken. Is that a call to violence?
Doesn't say how.
Right. So the Supreme Court decided this was not a call to violence. This quote sounds a lot like the same kind of speech that we might be targeting, right? Where it's just like, oh, something might have to happen. We might have to take some revenge, right? That speech is constitutionally protected. This case created the Brandenburg test to decide if something is like a threat of violence, if it's actually a call to violence, if it's if it's, you know, not protected by the Constitution. Must satisfy two criteria. It has to be directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and it is likely to incite or produce such action. So both of those criteria have to be met in order for us to be able to prosecute it, to declare it a crime, for it to not be protected by the First Amendment. But if it satisfies those two criteria, the administration is well within their rights for prosecuting this kind of speech. So, but that's a big if, right? And I think if they do start going after these things, we are going to see a lot of cases taken to court, because this is like a complex legal landscape. But I do think there's the ability to prosecute people that are calling for violence, but it has to satisfy these very specific, stringent criteria. My hope is that the Trump administration sticks to that, right? Like sticks to things that are clearly a call to violence, that have the potential to produce violence, that we actually prosecute that, because I do think it's important for us to root out political violence in this country. But I think it's also important for us to not victimize people that are well within their First Amendment rights, and create an even more powerful left-wing movement.
The problem is that even if you're going after people for things that they had the right to say, you could make their lives really miserable before it gets challenged. You could do a lot of unconstitutional things in the United States by the government before somebody gets to challenge it and all get the you might be able to show that it's constitutional, and finally somebody will stop you, but you could make those people's lives a living hell until it gets to that point. So that's how, if you're the president, you could do that. But the scary, like, a lot of right-leaning people are like, hey, well, the left started it, we might as well like do what they did to us. The problem is that if you keep opening this door wider and wider, I mean, what do you think is going to happen when the left gets to power? Like, you have opened the door for them, right? So they're going to use everything that you just put in their hands. Like, you normalized it. So anyways.
If you start victimizing groups and people that, you know, were speaking and you know, they were protected under the First Amendment, that kind of righteous indignation when the government is targeting you is very powerful, you know. But I do think it's important that we do try to root out political violence, but do so in a way that isn't violating people's constitutional rights, and isn't a smart way, that's thinking long term, that isn't just thinking, you know, I want revenge in the short term, right? We have to be very strategic about how we go about this, because it is a growing problem and we don't want it to become worse.
Right. Do you want to do, like, I don't know how much time you have. Do we have time to do the Jimmy Kimmel FCC
Yes,
situation?
let's do it.
as well?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let's do that. All right. So I think everybody saw this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But
I mean, that was the part that was the issue, which is basically,
Yes.
I don't know if he was lying or if he didn't know what he was talking about, but whatever. So the FCC responded to this, and they're basically making it sound like they could actually pressure private companies. They have the right to do that, and this is the chairman of the FCC. So let's Brendan Carr. So let's listen to him.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are, you know, avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful, because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and he had a tweet out last week where he was saying that, you know, emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant.
Anyways, this is actually 8 minutes. I didn't know. I thought I had a
Yeah.
shorter clip, but he goes on saying that if it's not, what they're saying is not in the public interest, then they have tools. Actually, I think here's the shorter version. Shorter explanation of this, because I'm glad that some people on the right, like Ted Cruz, called it out. So here, let me, Ted Cruz explains what's the issue with what he's saying.
I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell. We're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air, so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. I like Brendan.
Oh, no.
Genius. Perfect way to explain this situation. That's absolutely what they're doing. It's called jawboning. Here's the thing. The FCC, Brendan Carr, is it Brendan or Brandon Carr? I think it's Brendan Carr.
Brendan. Brendan?
Yeah.
Hold on.
He never should have said anything. He significantly muddied the waters on what could have just been private companies hashing this out between themselves. I remember listening to the Jimmy Kimmel clip the night his show was indefinitely taken off the air, and thinking, before that news came out, I listened to the clip and I was like, wow, that is going to haunt him for the rest of his career, because it is such a lie, right? And I just thought it was such a despicable lie, because so many of us knew, like, no, this kid was not MAGA, right? Like, there was all of this evidence to suggest the very opposite. But this was a lie that was being permeated online and around the mainstream media, right? So I don't think Jimmy Kimmel, I don't know if he knew that he was perpetuating a lie, or trying to mislead people, right? And you have to prove that someone actually knowingly perpetuated a lie. And the FCC getting involved, if they hadn't been involved, it's also possible that these broadcasters would have pressured ABC to pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air regardless. So why would the FCC get involved and jawbone ABC? Why would they do that? It muddied the waters. Jawboning is not allowed. We know that from Bantam Books versus Sullivan, which was another case decided at the Supreme Court. This was a case where book publishers or distributors actually were being threatened by this commission set up in Rhode Island that was designed to protect the morality of young people by rooting out or warning the public about indecent materials being published and distributed. But they were threatening distributors that carried some of these books, right? That amounted to like an informal threat of censorship, which is exactly what the FCC did here. It's also what the Biden administration did when they pressured social media companies to remove certain posts about COVID and to subdue the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? This is not acceptable. And I really want the administration to do the right thing here, right? Because muddying the waters by getting involved in a way that's unconstitutional, it's a very bad look, and it divides a movement that should be very unified right now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. No. I mean, he could have faced it was very likely that he was going to face a lot of consequences, because that was such a, I don't know, either a disgusting lie or a big mistake, and the consequences to being so wrong would have been so high. But I think the FCC kind of saved Jimmy because they turned him into the victim.
Yes,
like
exactly that.
Yeah,
exactly that. They handed Jimmy Kimmel probably his biggest night of viewership ever. I don't know if the numbers back that up, but I would not be surprised if suddenly all of these new people are rushing to watch Jimmy Kimmel because, you know, now he's the real enemy of the Trump admin, of the FCC. They try to take him down for speaking the truth. And it's like, no, what he said was a disgusting lie, whether or not he knew it was a lie or not. But again, this is why the government needs to stop getting involved. Okay. These matters can be handled by private individuals and companies. We can handle this ourselves, right? We
don't need your help.
Moral leadership. Maybe we want moral leadership from the Trump admin. Maybe we want them to investigate potential terrorist cells in the United States that are cultivating political violence. I would be okay with that. But other than that, why do we need any of this? We don't, you know?
Yeah, we could figure this out. Like, we don't want you to, like, we don't want a nanny state. We like the private citizens should be able to compete with each other. But yeah, the conversation, like, all of a sudden the conversation changed to, wow, that was so disgusting and vile what Jimmy said. Like, immediately now the conversation turned into, oh no, free speech has been challenged, which is actually true, to be fair. But like, free speech is being challenged. The government is overreaching. I mean, not that many people are now talking about how disgusting of a statement that was from Jimmy. The FCC just managed to complete. And again, the left hate not being the victim. And
I know. Well, now Jimmy Kimmel's the victim, and when we should be focused on Charlie Kirk and what happened to him, right?
Like, they hated the fact that Charlie was the victim for a while, because they're like, no, you don't get to be the victim. We're the victim. And as soon as the FCC did this, they're like, aha, let's stop talking about Charlie and let's talk about Jimmy. He is the new martyr. He's the new victim here. Forget Charlie. Like, now, you basically give them, they were so uncomfortable. They're right being a victim. And we're like, you don't get to have that. We are always the forever victims. And we gave them basically the victim card. We gifted.
And you know, I know the administration has better political instincts than this, because I've seen it in action, right? Where they've been able to shift public opinion on an issue. What was this? Why? What is up with the First Amendment violations this past week? I don't understand. They need to get it together. I really don't understand what the long-term thinking was here, because it just totally.
Do you want to hear?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Finish.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear more of Trump? Do you want to hear? Like, I have more of Trump regarding this whole FCC situation. Let's see what Trump has to say about all of.
There
there is a license. I'll give you an example. I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I got 97% negative, and yet I won it easily. I won all 7 swing states, popular, but won everything. And if they're 97% against, they give me only bad publicity or press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. It will be up to Brendan Carr. I think Brendan Carr is outstanding. He's a patriot. There is a licensing.
So he wants to take people's licensing away from them based on the way that they're covering him, because he thinks it's unfair. And then here again,
Mr. President,
and we're going to be going in quiet. You're really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I'm trying to ask you, what about your plans
You are
for
really
Memphis?
obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I
Okay.
am asking, what are your plans for Memphis? Many people want
I'm not going to
know
talk
what
to you
the numbers are
until
gonna
I
be like.
call on you.
What are your plans for
So,
Memphis?
who
Mr.
else? Yeah, go
President?
ahead.
Yeah, I just want to sell this free speech question, because you've said that you restored free speech in America.
Yeah.
Is that free speech including for people who are harshly critical of you, for your political opponents, for people who say things you don't
I've
like?
become immune
treat
to
you
it.
unfairly?
I've become immune to it. There's never been a person that's had more unfair publicity than me. And that's why your network paid me $15 million or $16 million, I believe, to be exact, George Slopadopoulos. And that's why CBS paid me a lot of money too. And that's why I sued the New York Times 2 days ago for a lot of money. Because I'm winning. I mean, I'm winning the cases. And the reason I'm winning is because you're guilty, John. You're guilty. ABC is a terrible network, a very unfair network, and you should be ashamed of yourself. NBC is equally bad. I don't know who's worse. I think they're equally bad. And, you know, for you to stand there and act so innocent and ask me a question like that. But look, you paid a big price because you were dishonest, John. The reason I won that lawsuit was because you were dishonest. You were proven to be dishonest. And so you can't sit back and just say, oh, well, what do you think? You know, like you're some wonderful person. You're not a wonderful person. Frankly, you're a terrible reporter. You know it, and so do I. Okay.
Mr. President, can you talk about why the Jackson Party is about to decide?
I gotta
Can
say,
you do
I
one more?
wish,
What?
I wish I could handle my haters the way Trump. He's so funny in his delivery. It's like, I know, you know, you're a terrible reporter. I know you're a terrible reporter. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Did you see the UN speech where he was like, you gave me a bad escalator, a bad teleprompter? You know,
no, I didn't actually, because I was focusing on
good.
You know,
It's so good.
I was focusing on the president of the Islamic Republic speaking, because I'm Iranian. So, but I will go look at Trump's speech as well. Yeah, but let's one more Trump, and then you could tell me if this is concerning or not.
No, I think Brendan Carr is a patriot. I think Brendan Carr is a courageous person. I think Brendan Carr doesn't like to see the airwaves be used illegally and incorrectly and purposely horribly. Doesn't like to see a person that won the election in a landslide get 97% bad publicity before the election. I mean, it's amazing that I won.
Yeah. So I don't know. This concerns me when the president of the United States is talking about hate speech and removing licensing based on what people are saying and people being unfair to him, and whether the coverage people are having, it could be legal, illegal. That is concerning. Do you think that I'm right, or am I?
I think it's fair to be concerned. I mean, I will also say that Trump kind of speaks out of 5 sides of his mouth every time he talks. So it's hard to know what he's actually going to do before he does it, right? So for the most part, I mean, I take what Trump says and what his admin says with a grain of salt, because it's what's most important is what actually happens. So like, is he going to really go after these networks and remove their licenses? That would be very concerning. Unless there's something I don't know about, which would enable them to do so, and it's, you know, protected by the First Amendment, but I'm not sure about that. But I would just say, like, you know, I think he's sore about how he's been characterized in the media. The other night I was watching the clip where they tried to assassinate him, and I think he's sore about that. So, you know, I think he's taken a lot of this personally, what's happened to Charlie Kirk. It's hitting very close to home for him. But I don't think any of that is an excuse to violate people's constitutional rights. You know? Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people on the right who might want to motivate him. Like let me actually play this. You could also respond to this. So I don't know if you guys know who this is. This is Gavin McInnes. He is really right. I don't know if I think you could call him far right. I don't know if that's
I don't know where he lies
actually
now. I remember he used to be, he was like one of the founders of Vice, and
oh wait, he is far right. He founded something else that was, I'm not sure actually, but again, he's considered by some people to be far right, but I'm not that familiar with his positions. But let's actually listen to what he says here regarding Jimmy Kimmel and him, you know, getting removed. I mean, he's back now, by the way, Jimmy Kimmel, but he was let's watch this here.
What we did in canceling Jimmy Kimmel is hypocritical. We talk about free speech, and then when someone says something we don't like, we cancel them. It's not consistent with our values. And I don't give a fuck. Fuck you. You kicked me in the balls, I gouge out your fucking eyes. I'm not doing some Dave Portnoy explanation on why this is consistent. It's hypocritical. We're hypocritical. This is a fucking war. Fuck you. You got me fired, I get you fired. It's like I say to my daughter's boyfriend, you make her cry, I make you cry. We're making you cry now, motherfuckers. This is who post-Molly Jimmy needs to suffer. And we're making him fucking suffer. And we're going to make them all suffer. The gloves are off. We're hypocrites now. You made your bed. You're fucking lying in it. And other colloquialisms such as that. What?
So he agrees that it's not consistent with his values, but fuck it, let's do it. He says like, yeah, this is hypocritical, but he doesn't give a shit. He's going to do it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we have to note that he's not necessarily talking about like violating people's constitutional rights, but more so participating in cancel culture.
Right.
I mean, we're essentially saying pretty much the same thing when we say it's fair to get people fired, you know, for celebrating the murder, or, you know, so like, I think he's just delivering it in a very, you know,
I don't know, because I
way.
think he thinks it's fair that the government is involved and all. Like he's celebrating all of it. Like we would be, me and you would agree that if Jimmy lost his job because of private backlash and private companies' response, that's what we would be okay with. I think some people on the right are saying like, no, like let's just use the power of the government and basically come down on these people because they would do the same.
Right. I don't know if that's exactly what Gavin is saying here. But you know, I will agree, like private businesses, free association, doing things in the marketplace of ideas, I think that is where the fight is occurring. And, you know, I think a lot of people resonate with what he said. This is war. It does feel like that to a lot of people. And I think we naturally want to hold ourselves back from crossing the line, but I think that's what's being defined right now, is what is the line, right? What is the line? How do you fight against an enemy that wants you dead? You know, what is the line there? How do you fight against that? How do you fight against the pervasiveness of that belief in our culture? And that's what the right is trying to define right now for themselves. I think both you and I are pretty much in lockstep on what that means for us. Right. And, you know, I hope that our voices and, you know, what we've come to agreement on here can be the triumphant agreement. You know, and I really, really hope that people on the right don't respond to this with more violence, that's like the worst case scenario. But, you know, I think understandably, a lot of people feel very much like they are under attack right now. How do you respond to that? You know? And also,
So
I think
this-
Gavin himself was banned from several social media sites, and I think he was just let back on to X. That's how I don't really know what's going on with him politically right now. But, you know, Gavin used to be a lot more mainstream, and then over time was kind of pushed out, and, you know, maybe some of that was fair, I don't know. But
yeah, I haven't looked
think
I have to look into that.
yeah, I think he has like a personal bone to pick. Like, there are several examples of people on the right whose lives were destroyed over the past 10 years. You know, I've said this on Twitter. I don't think I could ever get a corporate job after being so forward with my beliefs. And I'm not like a super radical person, right? I don't have a lot of opinions that I would say would be like distasteful, you know, but even me, I don't feel like a corporate world would want to hire me because it would be a risk for them, you know. And I think a lot of people that do work in these normal working environments that don't do what we do, feel like they have to stay silent and feel like they have to hide themselves from the world and from their friends and from their coworkers. And that's a problem. I think the best way for us to engage in this is actually to be more outspoken about what we believe, because I think a lot of people have been in hiding for a really long time.
Okay, so given that Maggie said that she cannot find normal like a job in the corporate world because of expressing her views, I will ask you, this is a good time to advertise her channel one more time. This is Maggie's YouTube channel. Go support her. More people who say things, and they're risking being able to just live the lives of, you know, some of you and be able to have like corporate jobs. You know, this is it's very risky. It's not psychologically, it's not very stable. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of uncertainty. So please, when you see people paying that price for saying the things that and fighting for the things that they're fighting for, please go and support them, so that there is at least within the content industry, there is a place where people like Maggie could have a, you know, make a living. And again, so that's again, her YouTube channel is also in the description. Follow her there, subscribe to her there.
Thank you so much. And I just want to clarify, you know, the opinions I've espoused about cancel culture and all of that stuff are mine. At FEE, we believe in free enterprise and freedom of speech and these like classically liberal values. And so if you want to learn more about what FEE is doing, you can go check us out at fee.org.
Yes, that too. With regards to the lines, I think these are the lines. I think you should go after them with everything you can, except these three things: violence, harassment, government. Do you think I'm missing anything? I think those are the lines. Do whatever you can to crush your enemies, except these three things: harassment, violence, or the government. Do you think that's a good line?
I think that's fair. And I will also say some advice I received this week, because I was feeling especially sensitive about, you know, like the criticisms of Charlie Kirk coming from people in my life that don't think the same way I do. Someone told me, you know, the old idiom, you catch more flies with honey. Like, it's important to also represent your beliefs in a way that's really a positive vision of your beliefs, so that people that think differently than you do can like see someone that's respectable. You shouldn't become a caricature or like become the straw man that they constantly love to attack, right? Like you have to continue being a good person, a good moral person, and showing up for your beliefs in a way that's really commendable. And I think in the wake of Charlie Kirk's passing, we've all seen how he showed up in his marriage, and how he responded to a lot of people that was really compassionate, even when they were being aggressive towards him. And I think we need to live by that example.
Okay, a lot of people are loving what you just said in the chat, so let me actually challenge that. now that there's so much support, I think there needs to be a diversity of, other than those three red lines. I think, we're talking about free markets, and it includes the free markets of ideas. I think different people would respond to different methods. I think we need what you said, but we also need, some people need to be, for some people, you need honey. Some people need to be slapped in the face. Not literally, but with words, right? Some people, I mean, we need like in the atheist world, we usually say we need the Daniel Dennett's, but we also need the Hitchens. Okay, I know you're a Christian, so you wouldn't relate to that, but I think like we need some, not like violent speech or harassment speech, but we also do need aggressive speech. We need kind speech, but we also do need aggressive speech, because people are not the same, and something works on some people and something works on some other people. So I think we need a diversity of methods.
Yeah, it's like the difference between tough love, when you have a relative or a friend who's like totally destroying their life, and you've tried like, oh, like I love you so much, like it's okay, like just it's gonna be okay. You've tried that approach, so you're like, no, you need to get it together. The tough love approach versus,
sometimes you need to tell people that they're being. No, sometimes you need to tell people, like, sometimes it's good to tell people like, hey, we're friends. I respect your beliefs. I respect you having not your beliefs. I respect your right, you having those beliefs. But let's talk about this. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? That's very valuable. But it's also valuable for somebody to just come and honestly tell you that you're being a fucking moron. Are you fucking insane? Have you lost your mind? Like, that's also sometimes valuable to just say that to people. I don't know.
I mean, I think that approach has gotten me to change my mind on some things over the years. So
right.
Fair enough.
Right. Okay. All right. I know I've been taking so much of your time. Do you have time to just respond to some of the super chats? I know I've been.
Yeah, a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So guys, no more super chats, so that we could actually go through the ones that we already have. Okay. So Nail Bunny is saying, lying to people so they feel good. This is in response to something way earlier. It's not a response to what we just said. Lying to people so they feel good became the moral thing rather than telling them the truth. The left enabled delusions like words or violence. Yes. I mean,
completely agree.
Yeah. Gasian American say, okay, so Gasian American is responding to two sexes. He's saying intersex people exist. Yeah, I mean, we don't ignore. Yeah, that's true. They exist. When we say there are two biological sexes, we mean mostly. We don't say, like, obviously intersex people are a minority, right? And then say, and two, my biggest issue is the left doesn't have an atonement process. They're in their cultural revolution with no off-ramp. That's actually true. And Christians get to advertise here a lot because they do have that a lot. So they get to come and brag about how much they have that in their religion, right?
It's true. That is so insightful. Thank you for saying that, because that is, I was left wing when I was like 14 or 15. And then I realized there's like no way to seek forgiveness if you've messed up in their eyes, right? So this atonement process, that's so important. And I think it's actually one of the greatest downfalls of the modern American left. So thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, so I don't know even what this is referring to. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if I agree with this, but Drew is saying former KGB Yuri Bezmenov predicted subversive Marxism-Leninism would get so bad that only when a country's women have their balls crushed will they wake up. I don't know if this is referring to what. Okay, I don't even know how to respond to this. What is this?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if
I'll go read into it. I'll read into it.
Yeah.
see if I can figure out where this quote comes from. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is referring to trans people, because I don't know if I should respond to it. But I don't even know what you're saying. Okay. But thank you for the super. Sapien is saying, I think it was not a lie, Kimmel, okay, or nor a mistake. It was a woke joke that conservatives find ugly. My 2 cents. I mean, it didn't seem like a joke because he wasn't laughing. I don't think he was joking. I think he really, honestly, I don't think he was even lying. I think these people are so delusional that they cannot even comprehend that somebody on their side would do something like this. I think that's maybe you're right, but that's what I think, right? Yeah, I don't think he was lying. I think they actually believe that, oh, obviously, if you're doing something so evil, you must be on the right, right? Like, this is my guess. I have no evidence for this, so I don't know if it's true. Yeah. Shauna saying Gavin McInnes is also a provocateur. He is particularly being comedic in his delivery. Oh, no. He's partially, sorry. Yeah. He is partially being comedic in his delivery. And yes, he does have a personal bone to pick.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's all very fair.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if he's being comedic or not, but that tweet that I showed you guys was getting millions, like 1 million views, with so many people celebrating it as a, like, if you go look at the comments, like there were so many comments, so many people liking it, sharing it as a way to say that, yes, fuck these motherfuckers. Yes, we will be hypocrites. We will go crush them. We don't care about being consistent. Fuck our values. These people did this to us, and now we're going to do this to them. So just the way it was, like, whatever his intentions were, the way that it was received and celebrated scared me. I don't know. So I think that was the so Asian American saying, I'm not consuming media you disagree with and is valid in the intellectual jungle. I don't know what you're saying. I shouldn't be forced to watch a piece of media. I don't know what this is referring to. Do you know, Maggie?
I don't know what part of this podcast he's referring to, but I think that's fair. But I do think algorithms really have a tendency to take people down pipelines that make them increasingly radicalized and protect them and shield them from the other's point of view.
I don't know if I think that it's better now than before. I know a lot of people say that about social media, but I think before social media, people used to be stuck in their bubbles more. Or maybe I'm mistaken. You know, I think we get exposed to so many.
I think we get exposed to the like hyper reactionary sides of the left and right. I think we get exposed to the extremes. And so then we think that everyone is part of that extreme. I think we run the risk of doing that with Charlie Kirk, right? Like, not everyone that reacted to this was reacting in such a vitriolic way, but that is what we saw. And we saw a lot of it, to be fair. We really did. But yeah, I think we're exposed to very extremist points of view.
Right. Carl is basically rebelling against me with a super chat because I said no more super chats and gave us a super chat saying, don't tell me what to do. Okay, well, thank you for the super chat. And we got another final super chat, guys. No more super chats. Amir saying, and one more thing, Maggie, you're gorgeous.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet.
Yes. Thank you, Amir. And it's shekels so it's Israel. Guys, every time we get a super chat from Israel, I like to remind people that all the accusations are true and we're officially Zionist funded. And I'm proud of it. Okay, so we have a lot of people from Israel watching our channel, which is, oh my God, guys, I said no more super chats. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Asian American, just complimenting a picture of myself that I posted. Thank you, Asian American. All right, Maggie. I really again, thank you so much. I took so much of your time. You were so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. And again, guys, please go support Maggie. Her channel is in the description. Go follow her. Go subscribe to her. She makes amazing content there, basically protecting the free market, defending free speech, classical liberal values. What else do you discuss on your channel, Maggie?
I discuss a lot of international political movements. So the video that's coming out this week is about the Gen Z uprising in Nepal. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wait, given that you're, oh my God. Okay. So given that you cover that, can you also cover Iranian people's opposition against the Islamic Republic?
Yes, I would love to. Text me some books that I should check out so that I can get a really good perspective. And if you would like to be in one of the videos, because sometimes I'll interview people, and like put their answers in the videos to give it more.
Oh my God, that would be an honor.
That would be great.
Thank you so much. And if you, so let me just say that there's many of the problems in the Middle East will be solved with the fall of the Islamic Republic. And the main two forces that we have against the Islamic Republic, the main three forces that we have against Islamic Republic is the Iranian people, Prince Reza Pahlavi, and Israel's war against the Islamic Republic. So supporting, if anybody who supports classical liberal values, well, the main enemies of classical liberal values are in the Middle East, and our supporter of these values are basically the Iranian people and the Israeli people. So they're basically in the middle, they're at the front lines of fighting against the enemies of all of these values that we're fighting, secularism, liberalism, free speech, all of that. They're basically fighting the world's fight for us, and the Israeli people and the people of Iran are paying the heaviest price for it. So supporting these two nations, the nation of Iran and the nation of Israel, against the greatest enemy of these values in the world, which is the Islamic Republic, is, I think, anybody who wants to support these classical liberal values should consider. And again, I also encourage you, Maggie, to look into Prince Reza Pahlavi. He's an ally of the West. He's an ally of Israel. He's the main choice of the Iranian people as the leader of the revolution against the Islamic Republic. So if you're interested in international politics, so I also suggest that you cover him and look into him.
Yes, I will definitely look into him. Armin, thank you so much for having me on. This was an amazing conversation. And I just thank you to everyone in the chat for interacting with us and asking us questions. This was so much fun.
Yeah, and thank you again for being here for almost 2 hours. Again, I said 1 hour, but you stayed for 2 hours, so thank you for that. All right.
Well,
okay,
I'm
Maggie.
a talker, so thank you so much.
Yeah, you were great. You had such great points. I mean, I'm biased because you mostly agreed with me, so I'm going to say you had such amazing points. But
fair,
very
fair.
Okay. All right. Let me end the stream just 1 second. All right, guys. Bye. Oh no, wait. I'm Israel Chai, Javid Shah.